Gonna go there. Woohoo! We all know each other. Hooray for us. Okay, so we're all here. I want to talk about a couple of things before we get into this. And one of the things I want to talk about quickly with you, and I'm going to pin myself so you can all take a look. If you want to chime in while something's going on, if you just type something in the chat, I'll see that comes up, and then I'll call on you, and I can answer any questions that you might have. It is, I think, one of the benefits of this type of a situation, as opposed to me just pre-recording all this stuff and you buying it this way, is this interaction with me. I like to think of myself as a source of information. So if you have specific questions about the material that we're working on, we'll save these for while we're in the classroom here. If you have questions about anything else that's bugging you, we do it before class, and I try to hang around about 20 minutes after class, so we can do that as well. So consider me your source of information. Magic is a terrific hobby. It's a challenging way to make a living, but it's a great fun hobby. And of course, there's all kinds of different ways to enjoy magic. There are people who just like collecting the artifacts of magic. There are people who are collectors of books, collectors of magic paraphernalia. I got you, Kevin. I think you're in. Does that look good? I think he's there. We'll see. Anyway, he'll figure it out. But if you would really like to get absolutely everything that magic has to offer, then you really want to perform it. And the reason is this: if you're in magic for any length of time now, I am now in my 67th year of being interested in magic. My first magic tricks when I was 6 years old. I think I saw my first magician at 5, but didn't get any magic tricks until I was 6. If you're in it that long, you'll learn a lot of stuff, and the experience of being fooled by magic does not occur very often. So consequently, what you end up doing is you live vicariously through your spectators. So if I can provide them with memorable moments of astonishment, and I can see that in their faces, and George, welcome, you haven't missed much, as all these people will verify. Sorry about that, gang. It really is very rewarding to see in their faces what you experienced when you first got started in magic, when you had that moment when every single thing, I mean, I remember the first time I walked into Dick Stoner's magic shop in Fort Wayne, and you look at the walls and everything is unexplainable and mysterious, and that's great fun. But with that comes a responsibility, because every time you perform magic for someone, it is as if you are the only magician in the world, which means that you represent all of magic. And if that interaction is a negative experience for the spectators, they will carry that on and will be reluctant to see magic from anybody else. So there is a big responsibility there. So keep that in mind. I want to also explain, because you're going to wonder about this, is this first class is getting the big rock moving. So I want to explain a little bit about how this whole course came about. There is an aesthetic point of view as far as the performing of magic goes that was greatly influenced by Dai Vernon, the professor. Now, if you don't know who he was, there's some reading material that you will get to look at the end of after the class is over, and you can find out about him. I met Vernon on half a dozen or more occasions, but I was not one of his students. I didn't move to Los Angeles to go to the Magic Castle every night. I lived in the Midwest growing up. But my mentor, who was a fellow named Harry Reiser, was a student of Vernon's. He saw Vernon all the time when Vernon lived in New York, and they became very good friends. And Harry's magic was greatly influenced by Vernon, as was Johnny Thompson. And Thompson, believe it or not, even though he and Harry were only a few years difference, maybe 7 or 8 years difference in age, Harry was really a mentor to Johnny Thompson when they both lived in Chicago. So both through Harry and then through Johnny and several other people like Jennings and Steve Freeman and Roger Klaus, people who espoused this Vernon aesthetic, it sort of came ingrained in me. And you don't hear very much about it these days. There's a lot of noise out there. I mean, you are constantly being bombarded by, if you buy this thing, you will be a magician. And it just doesn't work that way. As a matter of fact, the title magician is not something you bestow on yourself. I mean, you may put it on your business card, but really it's the people you perform for who decide whether or not you're a magician. You can't decide that for yourself. So what I wanted to do with this course is to try to give you a way of thinking about magic, to give you an introduction to the tools that you can use to analyze tricks, to decide what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent, how to examine the routines in your own repertoire, to fix rough edges, to smooth things out. Because what my goal is, and this was the way I saw when Harry performed, is when I finish a trick, I don't want somebody to go, oh, you're so clever, oh man, he's so good with his hands. It's just, I want him to say, but he didn't do anything. And that, I think, is wonderful, because if they come to that conclusion, then it becomes very hard to provide for themselves an explanation of how things work. Now, if you know my work, I published my first magic book, which was the first book of the Workers series, in 1991. And in everything I have published since then, and there have been a lot more things than the Workers series, I've always tried to explain both why and how. But the why is important. Why did I make the decisions I made in creating this routine? And it sort of has bothered me that that information hasn't really been absorbed or integrated for a lot of folks. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason, I think, is that everything I've ever published has been from my repertoire. I don't create magic tricks to sell to magicians. And that's a big thing, because you see, when you create for yourself, you shape the material to fit your technical abilities. And I have a fairly robust toolbox, because I've been interested in sleight of hand and the correct and proper performance of sleight of hand for many, many years. So if you're studying a routine of mine and there's some technical difficulties you have to surmount, you focus on that first. You're struggling, you're working, you're practicing, trying to get the moves down. And when you finally accomplish that and you can do the trick, it's unlikely you're going to go back and reread the trick to refresh your memory on all the wise stuff that happens. So my thought on this course is this: I'm still going to do that. I'm going to lay into the why heavily. I'm going to lay into the proper methods for certain techniques that you may have been doing for 20 years or more. But the tricks we look at are going to be quite simple. And this is why I don't want you to look at what I'm doing and go, well, I know that. That's really simple stuff. I want you to understand that they are being used as an example to get you to start thinking about magic in a particular way. And by doing that, I can cover some fairly heavy-duty and interesting topics that I don't think you're going to get anywhere else. I don't think you get anywhere else. Now, we are going to focus on sleight of hand in this course. And the question is, why? Why is sleight of hand important? Well, several reasons. If you can do magic with everyday objects, a borrowed deck of cards, some coins from people, whatever's around, it frees you up from being the guy who has to load up his pockets with tricks that you bought from the magic shop before you leave. Having skill with sleight of hand frees you from a fear of grabby spectators. If everything you're using is examinable, then there's no problem. If somebody wants to take a look at something, it's not going to be a problem. There is an innate gracefulness that you get from the proper study and mastery of sleight of hand. You handle your props with elegance and with gracefulness. And it changes you from being a magic trick owner into actually being a magician. And I think those are the goals. Now, it is very possible that you've never spent any time thinking about sleight of hand or how to learn sleight of hand. So let me throw a couple ideas for you that's important. First, you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish. Before any finger moves, before you do anything, before you even pick up the prop, you need to know what you're trying to do. Also important, because our fingers are going to be involved in this, you need to think about what the function of each finger is. Because sometimes you're going to have to adapt a move to fit your hand size. I have very small hands, so there are some things that I am physically incapable of doing. Moves that other magicians with much larger hands have no problem with. I can do some things that magicians with much bigger hands have a little bit of a problem with, and they would have to adapt rather. You need to stay enthusiastic, and you need to commit some time every single day to practicing things. You need to be able to analyze your progress. What's the best way to do that? Record yourself. Do a practice session, have the video camera on, record it, look at it. It is very difficult to analyze yourself as you're doing it. It's hard to be your own director and editor while you're busy doing this. So record it, look at it. Make sure that what you're doing fits what it is you're supposed to be doing. You have to be able to critically and assess whether you are practicing correctly. Remember, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you spend 20 years doing something incorrectly, boy, is that no fun trying to fix down the road. And I can tell you that from personal experience because I had very insufficient training as a piano player. So when I got to college, I had to fix my left hand because it just was, the fingers were flying all over the place. Yeah, exactly. So try to get it right the first time. Now, some of the things I'm going to show you may go against the way you've learned certain moves. Please try to learn it my way. Why, I hear you ask. The reason is this: unlike you, I know the goal of what we're heading for in both this class, in the Explorer 2 class, and in the classes I have yet to design that will come. It is much easier to learn a way of, for example, in a moment we're going to talk about just shuffling cards, holding the deck when you shuffle it. If you hold it in a particular way, a move down the road is going to be a lot easier for you to learn than for you to learn shuffling one way and then have to unlearn it to learn this thing. And here's the major thing. You got to give yourself some patience. You got to cut yourself some slack. You cannot beat yourself up. Everybody learns at a different pace. So, give yourself some grace as you do these things, and just always remember, you're not trying to be great the next day, you'd like to be a little bit better. And I'll give you a lot of suggestions on how to do that as we go along. Any questions about that from anybody? I don't think I think all of this will become very clear. So, I want to talk about card magic. If you have a deck of cards, grab them. And here's what you need to understand about cards and sleight of hand in general. Just like I said before, everybody's hands are a different size. Not only is the finger length and the hand width different, but the texture and the fleshiness of your hands are different. So you have to take that into consideration. Now, I have, throughout my life, suffered from having pretty dry hands, and now that I'm, in my senior years, it's just terrible. So one of the things that I suggest is this stuff, which is called Working Hands. It seems to do a good job. There's also a product made by this same O'Keeffe's company called Healthy Feet, which I believe, I haven't found it here in Canada yet, but what I understand about it is, I just wanted to make sure I remembered to start the record, that it does stay on your hands, it stays on your fingers a little bit longer because it's meant to heal dry, cracked feet, so it's a little more extra strength. So I want to try that. The O'Keeffe's works pretty well. There's also a substance called Chamberlain's lotion, which Ed Marlowe was fond of. The only thing I don't like about Chamberlain's, I used it for a long time, the fragrance bugs me. It's just a little bit too fragrant. Ed mentions that Cornhuskers, which growing up in Indiana, we know Cornhuskers really well, and I used to use Cornhuskers. One of the things that Eugene Berger used to say about dry hands is that every time you wash your hands, you should be putting something on your hands afterwards. You keep your hands moisturized always, not just when you're trying to work with cards. As far as card size goes, there is absolutely no problem doing anything with bridge-sized cards. If bridge-sized cards make some of these moves easier for you, for your size hands, then use bridge-sized cards. There's no shame in that. Nobody's going to criticize you. Poker cards are a little bit easier for more advanced stuff like riffle shuffle work, but we're not going to get into that in the Explorer 1 or 2. One reason that you might want to work with poker-sized cards is if you only work with bridge-sized cards and you borrow a deck and it's a poker-sized deck, that extra size may seem a little awkward for you. However, if you always work with poker-sized cards, if they hand you bridge-sized cards, you feel like a giant, and it's magnificent, and you feel like you've suddenly turned into the Hulk, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, so next, here's what we're going to do. In a moment, we're going to get into card stuff, but first, let me introduce you to some vocabulary. And this is not a usage of the word secret and the usage of the word method that is commonly done in magic. I'm going to delineate between the two for a specific purpose. For this class, the secret of a trick is going to be the 1 or 2 sentence generalization that maybe a layman would use to express how the trick works. How is it done? It's a trick card. Really? How's it done? Oh, it's a trick coin. It's a folding coin. It's a trick coin. Oh, it's done with mirrors. Went up his sleeve. It's probably trapdoors. That 1 or 2 sentence generalization. 90% of the magic that you see on YouTube or Instagram or on Reels on Facebook is focused on the secret. Why? Because a lot of time, and especially dealer demos, focus on the secret. Why do they focus on the secret? Because they want you not to figure out the secret, so you'll buy the trick. So everything that's involved focuses on the secret. Well, then what's the method? Well, the method I'm defining as being the combination of everything else: the script, psychology, audience management, technique that is invisible, and many other aspects. In other words, what the method is everything we do to make the secret seem unanswerable. In other words, here I phrased it pretty well here. In this course, we are going to learn how to construct methods that erase even the idea of a secret from the spectator's consciousness. So we know what the secret is, but by our method and the cleverness of our construction, a spectator won't even have the faintest idea how any of this works. So let's now dig out our deck of cards, and we're going to start, like I say, very simple, and with a couple of very easy things about card magic. So here we go. Let's talk about how to hold a deck of cards and dealing position. We have a specific way we're going to hold the deck, and I'll explain that now. We're going to rest this corner of the deck on this little portion near the base of your first finger, like that. And we're going to position it so that the lower corner sort of hits at the base of your thumb, and your forefinger curls around the front edge of the deck, and your middle, ring, and little fingers can come around the long side, and your thumb can rest either at the side of the deck or on top of the deck. Now, here's the reason for this position, which has a name. It's called mechanic's grip. And the reason we use this grip is down the line, down the road, as you progress in card magic, there's going to be some moves that you will learn that require the deck be held in this position. So it's good to learn it now and just to establish it as your normal way of holding a deck of cards. With the deck in this position, the deck doesn't rest on the palm of your hand. There's actually space here underneath. So it's above the palm of your hand. These fingers rest above the edge of the deck, as does your forefinger. Now here's the reason for that. If I relax and let the deck spread out, I can square it back up and get a pretty square deck just using my left hand. Now the back won't square, but that's okay for now. And how do I do that? I do that by exerting a pressure diagonally between my thumb and my forefinger, and then using these three fingers to press against the base of my thumb. So you should try that. Have the deck in this position, relax and let the deck spread out, and then just square it back up between these fingers. And you'll know you'll have the position correct when you can do that without too much problem. Now, the other reason that this position is good is if I exert a little pressure between these two fingers diagonally, I can pinch this corner of the deck just by pressing down with my thumb, and that allows me to move these fingers up and down the edge of the deck a little bit. Because you see, when they're like this, extending over the top, I couldn't deal any cards because they're in the way. But if I slide them down, then I can use them as a gauge when I deal cards, and we'll see that in just a moment. Now your right hand can assist in squaring the deck, and generally this is the shape my right hand takes when it comes over the deck. My forefinger is curled, my other three fingers are extended, and my thumb's at the back of the deck. I can grab it at the far corner, and that exposes most of the back. This is called open position. Or I can grab it near the thumb like this, and that's called closed position. Now, the nice thing about closed position is it obscures exactly how many cards you might be taking off the top of the deck, because the front edge of the deck is hidden. So we use both. And what you should do is, once you have this grip and you understand what your right hand's going to do, you should practice lifting off about half the deck, setting it on the table, setting the other half on top, picking up the entire thing, putting it back in mechanics grip position, and squaring up with both hands. Now you should practice that doing about half the deck. Then you could practice that doing a third, cutting 3 times, picking up and squaring up, 4 times, 1, cutting about quarters, about 13 cards each time, squaring up, and also practice cutting thin little groups. Now, this is all done by touch, and the more you practice this, the better you will get at using your thumb to pick off the number of cards you need to pick off. As you drop them on the table, you don't have to be neat, because then you can practice picking them up, putting them back into the left hand, squaring up with both hands, and you're there. Now, one other thing that we're going to learn to do is to deal cards. Now, to deal cards, the first step is we have to move these fingers down so they rest right at the edge underneath the top card. Then your thumb is going to push off a card just straight across like that, and your right hand is going to take it with the thumb on top, the middle finger underneath, and the forefinger at this outer edge, and you're going to deal it to the table, just like that. And you should do this slowly. Now, whenever we use 2 hands in magic to do a magic move, and I'm going to call dealing a magic move, a magic sleight, it's always best if one hand doesn't move, especially when the hands have to come together to do something. So notice I'm keeping my left hand on the tabletop, and I'm moving my right hand, if I move these off to the side a little bit, and I'm moving my right hand to deal these cards. And you should deal through the entire deck So you get used to how it feels as your left hand is in control of fewer and fewer cards. Then pick them up, back into the left hand, use both hands to square them up, and you can start and deal again. Now, speed is not something we're working for here. Rhythmic, even motion is what we want. After you've practiced that a while, you should practice dealing out perhaps 3 or 4 or 5 cards in a row. Now, to do that, again, the right hand is going to do most of the movement. Notice that my left hand moves a little, but it doesn't move very much. This gives me a target for my right hand to be able to come back and take the cards cleanly. And because of the gauge by my left middle ring finger and little finger, only one card comes off each time I deal. Deal out several bunches of cards like that, square them up, put them back on, square the whole thing between 2 hands, and do it again. Slow, rhythmic practice is what you want until the hands get coordinated and you can do that cleanly. And there you go. Okay, so very, very basic. The mechanics grip is one of those things that you will use forever in Magic if you're not familiar with it. The reason that this finger is important is if you ever go on and try to learn things like second deals, when this card moves over, you want something to be able to square it up with as you turn the deck back, and that's where this finger comes into play. You will find among your, what's the word I'm looking for? You're the reading. We have lots of reading. I'm really big on reading. I'm a proponent of reading. So there are things that you should read every week. This is not going to be a class where I'm going to be able to have time to have everybody do things for me, but I urge you to keep up with the practice. If, as you're practicing something, you're not sure if you're doing it right, shoot a little video, upload it to YouTube or Vimeo or whatever provider of that kind of thing you use. Make it unlisted so nobody else can find it. Send me the link, and I'm happy during the week to give you an idea of how you're doing. That's part of the game here. I have so much stuff that I'm trying to accomplish here that I can't really do the individual thing in class, but I'm happy to do it, when we're not in class sessions. To show you how important reading is, I'm going to do a trick for you, and I'm not going to tell you how it's done, but it's in your reading for next week. And if you don't know this trick, trust me, you're going to immediately start doing this trick for people because it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you what, Richard, can you unmute for me and just give me a testing 1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3.
Excellent, so you're there. If you were across the table from me, you would be doing what I'm doing. But so it's easy for everybody to understand. And so we keep this rolling right along. I would hand you the deck, or you can do this with your deck. You could be doing this on Zoom, and it would all work the same way. You could have the deck in your hands doing this on Zoom, but this is just a little easier for everyone to see. So I would say to you, shuffle the cards, and you do. And I'd say, put a card down here, and you do. And I'd say, put a card down here, that's fine. And I'd say, put a card down here, and you do. And I'd say, shuffle again, and you shuffle again. And I'd say, put another card down in this spot, and you do, and you do, and you do. And I say, shuffle one last time, and you do. And I would say, take this top card, put the rest of the deck aside, which it goes away. And I'd say, remember this card. Now, I'm going to turn my head away because I don't need to follow this. Can you guys all see the name of that card? Is it coming up clearly?
It is, yes.
Okay, is it face down now?
It is.
Good. And I would say to you, throw that card on one of the 3 piles. So you throw it on there. I'd say pick up one of the other piles. So maybe you do this one. I'd say put it on top of yours. And then I'd say pick up all of those and throw it on the other. Now, here's the interesting thing. There's one more step in this, but we'll learn it later on. So I'm not going to do it for you yet, because it doesn't affect the trick as you should learn it first. So Richard, here's an interesting game we're going to play with the cards that you hold. I'm going to ask you questions about your card, and you can lie or you can tell the truth when you answer my questions. Fun, huh? You do not have to be consistent. Are you ready to play?
I am.
All right, was your card red or was it black?
It was black.
That's B-L-A-C-K. Now that you understand what I'm going to do you want to change your mind and say red and I'll take 2 of these back?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so we won't use these. Excellent. There are 4 suits, clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. Which was yours?
Oh, I think it was a red spade.
It was a spade. Now, do you want me to spell spade or spades with the S on the end?
Spades with an S.
Spades with an S. S-P-A-D-E-S. Excellent. What was the value of your card?
It was a 10.
A 10. That's T-E-N, spells 10. And finally, were your answers true? Were they false? Or were they a combination of both?
They were a combination.
Now, do you want me to spell combo or do you want me to spell both? It's really your call.
Let's go for both.
Both. That's B-O-T-H. And remember, all of this happens in Richard's hands over Zoom or anywhere else. Now you have to tell the truth. What card did you really take?
This was the 5 of diamonds.
Okay, this doesn't work all the time, but it did this time. So it's very good that that worked out that way. Now, if you don't know this trick or haven't seen this trick, this was probably worth the price of admission of the very first thing. Now, this wonderful little trick was the first version of this was invented by Jim Steinmeier. It was called the 9-card problem. Now, the 9-card problem obviously uses 9 cards, and it can be done for a big group of people. This has to be done for one person at a time. And it was created by a really nice guy named David Solomon, who was one of the Chicago Mafia magicians. He was a wonderful guy, very nice guy, and he created some very clever card magic. And he called it the 7-card version of the 9-card problem or something. But that's all there for you in the notes. So you should read that. You should try it. You should perform it for some people. Perform it on Zoom. See what kind of thing you get. It's really a clever trick, and all you have to do is talk. All you have to do is talk and maybe think just a little bit. Okay, I want to talk about coin magic right now because we're going to be doing some coin and card magic. Coin magic, same thing comes to play as with card magic. Your hand size, your hand shape, your hand texture, all will affect how things work. I have terrible hands for coin magic. I have piano player hands, which means that no matter how fat I ever got, my fingers always stayed skinny, and I have windows. Now, don't worry about windows because there's things you can do, but when you're first learning coin magic and you've got all these windows. But coins never felt great to me, but I did some coin magic. My mentor, Harry Reiser, had wonderful hands for both card magic and coin magic. They were big, they were kind of meaty, and everything just worked great with him as far as coin magic goes. I would suggest for most of you, a $50 is going to be your coin of choice. So here's a little introduction. We're going to start right away with learning how to conceal a coin in the hand, and here's what that's all about. It's the nature of coin magic that almost every trick in coin magic involves concealing coins somewhere in one hand or the other. So we're going to start with one of the basic concealments and one of the easiest, and this is called thumb palm, even though the term palm is incorrect because you're not holding the coin in your palm, you're gripping it with the thumb against the upper side of the hand like this. Now, how do you get that coin into that position? Well, here's how, and it's pretty simple. Place the coin somewhere along your first finger so that a small amount of the coin extends over the edge of the finger. And now all you're going to do is turn your hand into a fist. So basically, the fingers don't curl, they stay flat, and the hand forms the fist around it. And as you get to the final stages of making that fist, the first finger pushes up on the coin and it is caught by the thumb against the side of the hand. Now, it's difficult to show you that without turning the hand, but basically what happens is these fingers are going to close, the coin is going to go into that position and clamped by the thumb. Now, when you do this and you form the fist, you're going to turn your hand over and the coin will go in, but this side, this angle directly from the left is vulnerable, and they can see the coin being gripped. So what you want to do is, as you form the hand into a fist, is you don't just close and stop, you close and continue closing until your thumb is almost pointing towards your body. So as this hand closes into a fist, it comes all the way around until the coin is secured. Now, once the coin is secured, there's really nothing to see from this point. So you need to come all the way in and then you can come back. Now, a benefit of thumb palm is that once the coin is gripped by the thumb, the fingers can open and they can be free and they can move or what have you. The downside of it, of course, is your thumb is trapped in this position. It can't move holding the coin. So I suggest now you put a coin on your hand so that it extends. Now, the other thing about this is this coin can really lie anywhere along the first finger. As long as a little bit of it extends, I can thumb palm it from there. I can thumb palm it if it's all the way out there. Basically, the coin just slides into the position it needs to for the thumb to grip it. It's also worthwhile to learn to do this with the opposing hand. In fact, all coin concealments that you learn should be learned with both hands so that you can do them ambidextrously. So just practice that. You turn in and you can open your fingers and you can close your fingers. Now, how do you get the coin into that position with a little bit of it above the finger? Well, if you jostle the coin like this to get it in place, it looks like exactly what you're doing, which is maneuvering the coin to get into a specific spot. Instead, you can slide it with your thumb. Now, here's a problem that I have. You may not have this problem. If I try to push this up across my fingers with my thumb, there's greater friction between the coin and my fingers than there is between my thumb and the coin, and I can't move it. But what I can do is come beyond the edge of the coin and then push it up to where it needs to be. Another way to maneuver the coin, especially if it's down low in your hand and you really have to bend your thumb in to get that coin to move, is this. You can put your thumb on the coin, turn your hand over, and now lift your fingers slightly. Now, what's happening is the coin, if you could see it from underneath, the coin is actually resting on my thumb, which means there's no friction against the fingers. So if I put my hand here, now you see I can move that coin because it's resting on my thumb rather than sticking to my fingers. So that's one way to do it, is to push it where you need it as you turn the hand. Now you can hold the hand open freely, you close it in, and you have the coin in thumb palm. Another benefit of thumb palm is you can do it with almost any size coin. This is a Canadian $2 coin, a toonie, and that is not a problem. This is a loonie, a $1 coin. It's a little bit smaller. Again, it's not a problem thumb palming it. There. This is a Canadian quarter, an even smaller coin, and I can do it there. And I can even, perhaps not quite as adroitly, do it with a nickel. So you want to find a coin that fits your hand pretty well. For most people, a $50 will be a good size coin to use. If you have especially large hands, you might find that it's more comfortable to use a silver dollar. But as I say, I suggest practicing this with both hands until you can get that coin easily into thumb palm, and you can relax your fingers and relax your wrists as you do it. So that's the thumb palm. Okay, let me emphasize and clarify a couple of things. When I said on that video that you want the thumb to be pointing towards your body, what I meant was you want the thumb opening to be pointing towards your body. So in other words, it isn't that you're not coming in this way to the tip of the thumb. What you're just doing is you're bringing the hand in a little bit to protect that thing. Now, here is the absolute hardest thing that you're going to have to learn, and it's in all kinds of magic, and it happens anytime you conceal an object in either hand, and that is the tendency for the hand to look like a little toy soldier. In other words, you'll have stiffness that runs through the wrist, stiffness to the elbow, stiffness all the way up to the shoulder joint. It is very hard to get relaxation. Now, where does this come from? How do you get to that point? Vernon used to say that you need to break the wrist. Now, what he means by that is, instead of there being a straight line from fingers to elbow, the hand just does this. It just relaxes and the fingers point toward the floor a little bit. So it's, instead of this, it's this. The other thing that's difficult and needs to be learned is that both hands have to have similar shapes. If I'm holding this coin like this, then this hand really needs to have a similar shape. If I need to make a gesture with my empty hand, then I make a gesture this way. I maintain that shape. I don't, you have, obviously you've got, this works out differently in different situations, but how many times have you watched somebody who is holding out in one hand and this hand's free as a bird? And just, then you wonder, well, what's going on here? Now, the reason this gets, and this will be down the road a little bit, but for example, well, how can I demonstrate this? If I do this, and I put that coin, see what happened to this wrist? I don't even think about that anymore. So as I did that false transfer, and it went in, this hand automatically just, boom, just relaxes. It just relaxes. And we'll talk more about, how you achieve that. One thing you will notice is as you are learning things, you will always use more force, more pressure, more strength, more grip than you actually have to. And the more you work on it, you will discover just the bare minimum that you need in order to get the job done. If you ever watch, well, I never watched really sports much when I was a kid, but now Lisa and I watch Blue Jays baseball just about every day that there's a game. And I watch batters, and a couple of the batters on our team are having real problems with when they're up at bat. And what it looks like is they're overworking it. When somebody really hits a ball well, it's the smoothest, most relaxed action you've ever seen in your life. If you have ever watched virtuoso piano players, I always thought that there's a jazz pianist named Art Tatum, and I always thought, wow, he must look like crazy, frantic, because he played all these notes. And his hands look like butterflies moving on the keys, just the lightest, gentlest touch you have ever seen. And that's what you're going for. In nature, the example that I use is a cat. If you've owned a cat or been around cats, if a cat jumps from the floor to a table, the cat doesn't jump high and land on the table. The cat doesn't jump low and run into the edge of the table. The cat jumps with exactly the amount of force needed somehow, I have no idea how this calculation works, so that it's up and on there with exactly the amount of effort that's required to get the job done. And this is always a demonstration of a virtuoso, because the virtuosos have learned to minimize the amount of effort. Now it takes, trust me, I'm not a virtuoso piano player, and I don't consider myself a virtuoso magician, but I can certainly hold my own. But this takes a long time to get under your fingers, and you have to cut yourself some slack. So don't rush that. So that's a very simple thing. And one thing you may want to do is, as you're practicing your thumb palm, is, I'll do it over here so you can see it easier. Have 2 coins in your hand. And as you close your hand, thumb palm one of them. And do this with both hands. You need to be ambidextrous as you do this, but do it with both hands. Now, there's another factor that comes into this that that I have not addressed at this moment, but we will get into next week. But for now, we're just learning mechanically what our fingers have to do to accomplish this. Okay, next on the agenda. My job is to teach you to think like a magician. So, how do we do that? What techniques do we use? In other words, in my work on Fool Us, somebody sends in a trick, and I look at it, and I analyze it, and I try to find ways to make it as good as I can possibly make it. Well, what am I looking for? Well, this is what we're going to talk about now. We are going to talk about it with a trick that you are immediately going to think to yourself, this is a dumb, simple trick. Don't think that. Number one, because in 3 weeks you'll learn all kinds of ways that very good magicians have used the principle behind this trick to do lots of interesting things. But remember what my goal is. I'm using simple things to introduce important, deep concepts. So, here's the trick we're going to use. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what's the first thing we should ask ourselves when we go to examine a trick? What is the effect? What's happening? How do we know what the effect is? The effect is what the spectators are going to tell their friends you did when they describe this memorable experience that you provided for them. So, what's the trick? I took a card, he put it in the deck, threw him at the ceiling, and my card stuck on the ceiling. Lovely trick. What's the trick? I took a card, I wrote my name on it, it vanished, and it was in his wallet, or in his pocket, or in a sealed envelope in his pocket. What was the effect? He shuffled the cards face up and face down, and when he spread them out, they had all turned back the right way. What was the effect? Well, he had a $50, and he hit it on the table, and it passed right through the table. Or he had a coin, a quarter, and it went into a bottle, or a $50. That's the effect. That's the very first thing you need to ask yourself. What is the effect? So here's the trick we're going to tear apart for the next 3 weeks. I call it a convenient prediction, and the reason I call it a convenient prediction is you can do it with any group of objects that you can assemble. So Evelyn, you're going to be on the spot here, so unmute yourself if you would, please. And let me explain the scenario. So you've had dinner, and everybody's sitting around the dinner table. And you say, boy, that was weird. And they go, what? And you go, I just had this, boy, it was like this intuitive flash or something. I can't explain it. It was just about the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. I better write this down. So you grab your back of your business card or something, and you write something on a piece of paper, and let's get it out down here out of the way where everybody can see it. And now you say, so listen, I want to show you something because that was so weird, but I need some objects. So let's gather some objects from the table, or if you've got things in your pocket, come and grab some stuff. So now people dig into their pockets, they dig around the table, and they get all these things. Now, here's the way this is going to work. Evelyn, you and I need to eliminate some of these things. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to touch 2 of these, and you tell me which one to get rid of. All right? So I've got a cell phone, a toonie, a pen, a salt shaker, a spoon, a wallet, and glasses. So I'm going to touch the glasses and the toonie. Which one should I get? Oh, you can't see the glasses. Sorry, let me move it in here. Okay. Which one do I get rid of?
The glasses.
Okay, so the glasses are gone. Now it's your turn. I would say to you, you touch two of them. Which two do you touch, Evelyn?
The phone and the spoon.
Okay, I'll just say, well, let's get rid of the phone. All right, and let's do it again. How about now?
The pen.
Okay, so the pen is gone. Which two do you touch, Evelyn?
The glass and the wallet.
The what?
Oh, sorry. Am I missing one? That's the second one on the left.
Oh, this is a salt shaker.
Oh, salt shaker. Sorry, I couldn't see it. The salt shaker and the wallet.
Okay, so you touch these two. Let's get this out of the way. So that's gone. All right. How about here? Which one do you like? Or which one should I get rid of?
Get rid of the spoon.
Okay, so the spoon is gone, and the last one, Evelyn, is down to these two, and I don't know. She pointed this out, so I'll get rid of this one, I guess. Okay, so I'm down to the salt shaker after all that. And what's interesting is if I turn over this, it says, I see a salt shaker in your future. Now, that was not a performance. That was a demonstration. We're going to make this into a performance in a little bit, but that was a demonstration. And when I talk about how this works, I want you to do the same thing. So you will be demonstrating and not performing. And how does it work? Well, this was based on a thing called the PATEO, P-A-T-E-O, PATEO force, which was invented by a guy named Roy Baker, and I think he published it in the late 1960s. Excuse me, PATEO stands for point at 2, eliminate 1. Now, I'm going to force the salt shaker. So I write, I see a salt shaker in your future. Before we gather any objects, I say, I see a salt shaker in your future. I put it aside, and now I say to everybody, let's gather some objects on the table. All I have to make sure of is that the salt shaker is one of those objects. Now, if you're doing this after dinner and there's things around there, it is very likely someone will grab the salt shaker. If you only get a few things, you have people take things out of their pockets. They take out, wallets and glasses and pens. When you first start this, you don't line them up like this. Everything's in a bunch. And so if we don't have the salt shaker and it's on the table, as I'm saying, come on, get some stuff out of it. Come on, and it just goes right in. Now you're going to say, Mike, you can't get away with that. And I'll say, I've been getting away with this for 40 years. And I just recently did it for my brother-in-law, and he had no idea how the trick worked. So it's simple, no big deal, and we'll be talking more about this, but you just slide it in as you're encouraging people. Then, after everything's out, then you line them up in a line like this. So there are 7 objects. With an odd number of objects, I go first. Okay? With an odd number of objects, I go first. Now, I wrote out this little card because in demonstration, I keep forgetting where I am. So this keeps me on track because I'm old and feeble mentally. So, when I touch 2 objects, I never touch the salt shaker. So I touch anything else. And she says, get rid of one. Now, she touches 2 objects. If she doesn't touch the salt shaker, I get rid of either one. If she does touch the salt shaker, I just don't eliminate it. So if she goes like this, I get rid of this one. And now it's my turn. I don't touch the salt shaker, she gets rid of one. It's her turn. She touches this and this, and I get rid of the spoon. Now we're down to 3. It's my turn. I touch these 2. She gets rid of the pen. Now it's her turn. She only has 2 left. I get rid of the coin. Notice when I took this away, I tried to make it seem like it's what was her comment about the salt shaker that influenced which one I took away. See what I mean? Just try to work that into the thing. So this goes away. All that's left is the salt shaker, and there it is. Now, I want you to try this trick out. Notice this is not a performance. Why? Because we haven't thought about a lot of the things we need to talk about. What do we need to talk about, Mike? Well, that's your job for next time. I want to know what's wrong with this trick. I want to know what's wrong with this trick. Well, how do you figure out what's wrong with a trick? Here's the very best way to start. Ask yourself this question. If I had the power of a real magician, what would this trick look like? That's a good way to start. Anytime that what the procedure demanded by the method is that varies from what you would look like if you had the power of a real magician, you should really work on fixing that. There are other things in this trick that just you might say to yourself, well, ask yourself what would make you suspicious? What would make you start to wonder about this method? What would make you go, why does he do that? Why does he do it that way? If it raises suspicions in your mind as a magician, it will probably raise suspicion in the minds of the spectator. Now, I must explain one thing, and this is an aesthetic choice. I've decided right just about from the beginning that when I started to create original magic, or at least take somebody else's trick and modify it to suit my needs, I decided I would always strive to fool the smartest person in the room. Why? Because if I can fool him, everybody else comes along for the ride. If I don't design my trick that way, there's somebody very observant, somebody very astute, somebody intellectually clever who's not going to be able to experience this moment of astonishment. So I'm always working so that the smartest person in the room won't have any clues. Are there lots of things to fix in what you just saw? Well, there's some things we need to fix about this trick. And I want you to think about what those things would be. Okay? And that's how we're going to get started in this kind of a thing. Maybe something you've never done before. And if not, I'm glad that you're learning it here, because it is simply one of the most valuable things you will ever learn in magic. The great thing about it is you'll be able to make up your own mind about things. I don't want you to do something because Mike says to do it. I want you to do something because you've thought about it and it's the right way to do it for you because of what you've decided on. Remember, if you're a sculptor and you've got a huge piece of marble and you're going to carve an elephant out of it, you need to know what that elephant looks like before you put the chisel and the hammer to the stone. You can't just chip away and hope that you find an elephant inside that thing. Every great creator, every great artist knows what they want in their head before they even start to tackle it. I've always been amazed. I had a little chance to work with Guillermo del Toro on the movie Nightmare Alley a couple of years ago. Amazing to me, he has every single shot in that movie. The color relationships, all these things, he's got it all here, and he puts it on a piece of paper. So, before these hundreds of people show up and start spending, thousands and thousands of dollars a day, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what he's looking for. All right, a couple more quick things, and then we'll wrap this up. I said that the secrets are the basic kind of thing about magic, but more generally speaking, I'm talking to you about how magic really works right now. And I need you to respect that information. We don't preserve secrets because they're so important. Jim Steinmeier says that magicians guard an empty safe. And it's very true. We preserve those secrets and we preserve those methods and we preserve those things in order to provide wonder for the audience. That's number one. Number two, respecting secrets honors the creators of magic. I think one of the things that makes me angriest at what's going on with YouTube is this desire to get clicks or to have you watch a video to the end of that's 45 or 60 seconds because that generates some type of monetary something for somebody that does it. Right now, what I'm seeing a lot of is people doing a thing with a deck of cards where they deal a card to the table and it disappears as they deal it. Have you seen guys doing this thing? Do any of them mention who invented this? No, not a single frickin' one of them do. It's Leonard Green's move. It's Leonard Green's move. Why not mention Leonard Green? It isn't your damn move, it's Leonard Green's move. So you do it well, fine, but let's talk about the guy who came up with it. One of the things you're going to learn in these 6 weeks is you're going to learn about some of the great magic creators. Many of them have been good friends of mine, and I have been blessed to be able to have spent time with these guys. And a lot of times you don't realize that these are living, breathing human beings who were, you know, crazy, wild, feet of clay, not as the magic books portrayed them, but interesting individuals, and you deserve to think of it like that. It's they came up with it, and we reap the benefit of it by being able to perform these miracles. It is important in the keeping of secrets and in the keeping of other people's secrets. I learned very much the hard way when I was a young man the importance of keeping secrets. Especially now it's not so much, it's still a big thing, but back in the early 1970s when I was just meeting really good people, magic secrets, really valuable, this is how you do this thing type secrets, were hard to come by. You had to earn the trust of people. And if you earned their trust and they shared something with you, the implication was, this is for your eyes and ears. And I betrayed that trust once because I assumed somebody would understand the value of something I shared with them that was somebody else's, and it was just a guy who was in magic for the money. As far as this guy's concerned, magic is just a tree full of cherries, and he picks them off and sells them to people who are too lazy to pick cherries off of trees. I won't mention who that is, but you all know who it is. Anyway, so you're going to be privy to some things that are not talked about a lot. I would ask that you not share links to videos in this course and not share, you know, the material that's there. I hope by, you know, offering you these PDFs on certain tricks that they expose you to creators and you will seek out more of their, you know, more of the things that they put out. So, what happens next time? Here's what happens next time. Where's this? Here we go. Each week, you will get a printable practice log sheet of the things that we talk about, and you can mark down how many minutes you work on it, how many times or how many repetitions you do, things like that, so you can actually see progress as you go through this. It's a very good way to begin to learn. So, right now, all we're doing is practicing dealing position, dealing cards, or mechanics grip, dealing cards, and cutting, getting comfortable. Getting that touch is a thing that will take some time. I would like you to practice and show the patio trick to a friend or family member, somebody you can, you know, trust, and that you won't be horrified if you don't do it particularly right. So you may want to go through your family members one at a time, just in case you need a buffer of how many times you're going to do this. We're also, there's that wonderful David Solomon 7-card trick, 7-card version of the 9-card trick. Wonderful trick. I hope you try it out. People do try it out. There's a biography of Vernon. You're going to hear Vernon's name all over the place for the next 6 weeks and the 6 weeks after if you pursue this further. And you'll also read some further reading. So there's really two kinds of documents that you're going to see. One are directly related to things I talk about in class, like the instructions for that trick. But there is supplemental material that is not, you know, vital that you read, but will enhance your experience. And none of these are particularly long. Okay, there's, you know, some of them are a page, or maybe 2 pages, but not longer than that. They're all easy to absorb in a week. And that's all I know. Questions, anyone that I should get on tape? Anybody? As I always say, there are, yes, Ed, please.
Quick one.
Yes, sir.
That 7-card trick that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
So before class, I went up and downloaded a lot of PDFs. I don't remember seeing it. Is that uploaded now?
It's probably there, it'll probably be there after class. If it's not there, I'll check it, because it should be there.
Okay.
If it's not
Okay.
there, it'll be there, I'll make sure it's there for
Okay,
you.
and I might have missed it. Just curious.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. Anything else? Otherwise, here's what I do. I do this. I go back over here, and I go, see you next week.